Hey,
Hey, Kyle.
what
How's
are
it
you
going?
doing?
I'm playing guitar.
Oh, well, let's just do a video, okay?
I'm playing guitar, Kyle.
I know that, but come on. Like, it's a nice day. We're at the park.
I'm
It's
playing
okay. Don't
guitar.
worry. You think, collect your thoughts. I'll go ahead and start,
All right,
okay?
good. Yeah.
So, when Otto von Bismarck visited Salisbury in 1655, nobody knew that he would become the Prussian chancellor. But a lot of people here wrote about how powerful he was and how important he seemed to be. And it was just,
Kyle, come on now.
what?
Come on.
What?
Let's not do that. Theo Beerbaum wasn't even here in 1865. Who was going to write about Otto von Bismarck?
I don't know. George Washington, Andrew Jackson, right? He came through here,
Oh, Kyle.
right? George
I know
H.W.
what you're
Bush
trying to
came
do.
through.
It's a nice day. I'm trying to play guitar in the park, and you are coming in here trying to make me do a history video with that hat on.
Well, I got to do what I got to do. The public is demanding more.
Fine. We'll do a video.
Okay?
We'll do a video.
All right. That sounds great. Get ready for the Rowan Committee of Safety. As we talk through everything today, when we describe Rowan County in 1776, Old Rowan is going to be so much bigger than it is today. So Old Rowan is going to extend all the way to the Blue Ridge Mountains. When you think about current Rowan today, it is much, much smaller, but Old Rowan is going to be a lot of western North Carolina. So some of the events that happened in what would have been called Rowan County in 1776 would be a different county or a different part of the state today. So as we describe those things, just keep that in mind as we go on. So as we were doing our research for different parts of the Revolution and what happened in Rowan County, the Rowan Committee of Safety came up, and again, one of a treasure trove of resources that we have are the minutes from those meetings that happened between 1775 and 1776. But we want to kind of give you an understanding of what this committee really was. So of course, this committee is going to be founded out of this inspiration of the Revolution. And of course, you know, I still do teach history and social studies in different schools throughout the county. And so I want to kind of talk to you through what are the textbook definitions, and then Aaron's going to support basically what I'm saying completely with some actual evidence of what the Rowan Committee of Safety did. Okay?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
So we start with the original idea of the revolution is going to be freedom. Everybody has this freedom to do and be what they want to be. So give us some evidence on that.
We've got a problem there, Kyle, because we still got slavery, we still got women, and we still have what happens to the Native Americans. So, some issues, and also there's some issues around, you know, rich and poor people, and the class issue with freedom. So, that one, we'll
set it aside.
Let's find another one.
All right, let's try a different one. It'll still be in the same vein of freedom, but of course, taxes. Right? We're protesting all these awful taxes that the British government is levying against us that are just unreasonable and taking money out of our pockets.
Yeah, right? Again, I mean, maybe not so much the tax aspect, but, you know, meddling in the economy thing. The Committee of Safety does things like sets price controls and actually has court when somebody violates the price controls. So I'm not sure that we can necessarily go with taxes, because, you know, it's still the government stepping in trying to tell you how to run your business.
Okay. All right, so we've done freedom and we've done taxes, and you shot both of those down, which is a little disappointing. So let's think about what are some other things like freedom to, here's a different one, about freedom to believe and decide and support what you think is important.
That's another one, man.
Really?
You know, there's a large number of loyalists that lived in Rowan County.
Yeah.
Not necessarily right around Salisbury, but like in the Forks of the Yadkin, a little bit in the old regulator areas in what's now Randolph and Guilford County. And also to the west, there were quite a few loyalists up there. And when the war starts, they get thrown in jail. So,
boy. Dig a little deeper, you find things you don't really want to find. Huh?
I mean, yeah, they actually put people in prison for believing different things. And, you know, now we have different political parties, and luckily we're not throwing people in prison for things. But back then, if you believe something different, you went to prison. So Yeah.
So I guess the ideals of the revolution and trying to preserve what you feel like is the spirit of the revolution sometimes can be two different things.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And that's where, talking to the Salisbury Academy class last week about the Civil War, the reasons why a war starts, the reasons why a war fought, and what happens when a war ends are often very different things.
Yeah.
And it means very different things to different people. And our ancestors were just like us. They had very different beliefs about things that they wanted. And, so we see that coming through in these records out of the Committee of Safety and other things going on around Rowan County in the 1700s.
The Rowan Committee of Safety was founded once the Revolution began. And as British colonial authority started to weaken in all of these areas, it effectively became a shadow government for Rowan County. It met right here on the square. That's where the courthouse was located in 1775 and 76. And there are records that exist, thankfully, from that time that tell us the things that they focused on. One major concerning thing of the time was that they fixed prices for different things that were used throughout the colonies. And if merchants charged more than the Committee of Safety allowed them to charge, then they either could be thrown in jail or they were brought before this committee to then either apologize or defend themselves. And there's several times that many members, there's one, Maxwell Chambers, who we've talked about in several other videos and would talk about many times in Rowan history. The first Maxwell Chambers used to be a treasurer at the beginning of the Committee of Safety. Well, he was relieved of that role and then also was going to be published in the South Carolina Gazette as a traitor to his country because he charged 5 shillings more than the price for powder that the Rowan Committee said was okay to do. So they would take people and they would ask them for these types of things. Did you charge this much? And if you did, you were threatened to go to jail.
We've focused a little bit on the negative things the Committee of Safety has done just so we can have some fun with it, but they actually did do quite a bit of positive things. You have to remember, once we started on the way towards the revolution, and we're talking about even before the Declaration of Independence, there really was no authority, especially back here in Salisbury, Rowan County, that anybody would listen to outside of local government. So it's not like the British government could send somebody back here to say, hey, you guys are doing this wrong. So the Committee of Safety became very important in terms of ruling. They also had a very important role in organizing the militia. And that's where a lot of that price fixing stuff comes in, because they wanted to make sure that whenever it came time for the militia to be called up to actually fight, that they would be able to buy things at a certain price and have enough money to protect their homes and, probably more importantly, to protect their ideals.
One of the colonists' major points of contention during the Revolution was land and where could you settle. And the British government, after the French and Indian War in 1763, published a proclamation line that barred these settlers from going anywhere west of the Appalachian Mountains. And so there was a lot of restriction that was put on these colonists. And one of the reasons why they were upset was because they weren't allowed to go where they wanted to go.
That was a big reason why a lot of people in Rowan County fought in the French and Indian War, was to be able to settle west of the Appalachian Mountains. Speculation in land, meaning people who could buy up large chunks of land and then sell it to new settlers, that was a major way to make money in this period. Matter of fact, Salisbury was probably founded where it was just so it could become that center where people could come and do that. And that plays a huge role in one of the first actions that happens during the American Revolution by the Rowan militia. And we're standing here in front of the Transylvania Company monument on the Plaza building on the square, because the Transylvania Company, which we really need to do another video on, was set up to circumvent the proclamation line of 1763, made the Cherokee very, very angry, and actually led to a very terrible episode right in 1776 as the American Revolution is getting started. Because settlers were heading over the proclamation line in 1774, 75, and 76, a series of treaties were made with the Cherokee and other Native Americans that started to breach that proclamation line. The issue is the settlers were making treaties with people who weren't actually able to make treaties with the Cherokee. So it's kind of like two people who, don't actually own land come together and make a treaty to own somebody else's land. And as you can probably imagine, that did not go over very well. It caused the Cherokee to get very restless. The British government was having to walk a very fine line when it came to dealing with the American colonists and the Cherokee, because they know that there's a powder keg in either direction. If they arm the Cherokee can then attack the colonists, which the British government then has to defend. But if they continue letting the colonists do whatever they want to do, then the colonists can attack the Cherokee, which the British government also has to defend. So they're kind of between a rock and a hard place. And what happens in September of 1776 is things come to a head. There is an attack by the Cherokee on the colonists, and the American colonists in Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina all band together their militias and march up into Cherokee country. And they move the Cherokee back into the mountains. And that is a very sanitized way of saying they burn their crops, massacred quite a few villages, and pushed them up into an area that was not made to contain that many people right at harvest time. So you have to think, not only was it a military campaign that devastated them in that moment, but being that it happened right at harvest time, and the Cherokee were never able to mount any significant resistance after that campaign in 1776.
We mentioned at the beginning that the Rowan Committee of Safety felt that it was necessary to identify loyalists who were living in this area, because it was their jurisdiction was the whole county, remember, big area. But they felt it was necessary to identify who had loyalist sentiment. Well, what does that actually mean? Well, as a loyalist, you are somebody who is going to be loyal to the crown. You're loyal to Great Britain and England, which means that you are against the Patriot cause. You're against what the Committee of Safety is trying to do. And so you're going to feel very differently and act very differently than people who are on the other political persuasion from you. So the important thing here with loyalists is the fear that the committee had, because as Britain is coming into South Carolina and North Carolina in the late 1780s, or well, at the beginning of the 1780s, at the end of the war, the late part of the war, they're looking for these loyalists who might join their militias.
An important thing to remember, North Carolina was very fragmented during this time period. You had just had the Regulator movement that ended in 1771 with a battle of two different militias fighting each other. No British troops were here in that. Matter of fact, the commander of the troops that were representing the British government was a guy named Richard Caswell, who became the first state governor of North Carolina just a few years later. So loyalists, technically, especially at the beginning, were the majority. Because if you think about it, there was nothing in 1775, 1776 that said that these upstart patriots, rebels, were going to be able to do anything. They were probably going to be hung as soon as this whole thing is over, just like those regulators were. And so there were a lot of efforts by the Committee of Safety to do some outreach to try to get these people in. The Rowan Resolves being one of the key things of that. But once the war starts, things get pretty nasty out here in the backcountry. There are actually lists in the courthouse records and the Committee of Safety records of people who have not taken the oath of allegiance to the United States. And those people are jailed or taxed or harassed until they either do or until they join up and start to fight back.
And going back to what we were talking about earlier with the merchants, if those merchants did charge higher prices, they did have to take that oath of allegiance again.
Yes.
So that oath of allegiance was very important. It defined you in front of the committee, and then the committee had the ability to then define you to the entire population that is here in Rowan County at the time.
And the Loyalists had no equal Committee of Safety on their side to do that. So when the war really gets going, things get pretty rough here in the backcountry. And you have these two roving militias which are really kind of like kin groups going around fighting each other. One of the main families that were loyalists, or at least identified by the Committee of Safety as being loyalists, was the Bryan family, descendants of Morgan Bryan. And there were 2 loyalist commanders to come out of the Bryan family. They actually try to rise up in 1780 when Cornwallis comes up to Camden and lead a militia down, but they're defeated by a local militia. But the Bryan family were connected to the Boones. Daniel Boone married Morgan Bryan's daughter. So he is in Kentucky during this time and trying to stay away from the war. But you can see how these lines are constantly changing, and nobody knows really what's going to happen or who's going to win.
And you know what the Bryan family was doing?
Speculating.
Land speculation. So again, more of these kind of ties that are putting all of the actions of the committee and all of these people, tying them closer together as to why they're doing what they're doing and why they're motivated to do what they end up participating in. Until the end of what is North Carolina today, right in the Blue Ridge Mountains. So it's a pretty big area. And the people there...
That should pick up. He can't do it while it's going on.
Oh my gosh. Proclamation line of 1763 restricted colonists from settling anywhere west of the Mississippi. Nope. That's stupid.
Nope.
I had to figure out the west part, and then I forgot.
Yeah, well,
Blue Ridge
I heard the west come out, and I was like, oh, okay, we're going. Then I heard Mississippi, and I was like, well, about 500 miles too far.
Yeah, those are the French settlers. We're getting okay. Anyway, bonjour. All right,
let's try it again.
And so that proclamation line limited the ability of these speculators. Son of a gun.
The American colonists were also moving their way over towards the Cherokee, and it is very hard to talk when there is this loud noise, even though nobody else can hear it. It's just me.
Right. I'm gonna have to have like a separate video of
all the
we
noise.
heard.
Yeah, this is what we hear.
Is that ASMR? It's gonna make you. It's not gonna relax you. It's just gonna grate your nerves.
It's gonna grate on you.
We mentioned at the beginning of the video that the Committee of Safety felt that it was necessary to ride mopeds through the streets while we're talking. We mentioned at the beginning of the video that the Committee of Safety felt that it was necessary to ride mopeds through the streets while we're talking.
And they won't be able to hear it, so it's no good.
Don't, they will for years. That's right.
State governor. There we go. He was. If you read the Wikipedia page, that's what it'll tell you. Wow. Okay. All right.